Welcome, everyone, to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I'm your host, Hayden Lee, and I am joined this week by a very special guest. We are kind of in a cool space right now here at Spot On Solutions because we've had the opportunity to work with some really cool people over at True North Restoration. And Noah today, who's going to be our guest, is no different. So I'd like to welcome on Noah Witt, owner of True North True North Restoration of Southwest Oregon. Noah, thanks for coming on the
Morning.
podcast today.
Thanks so much, Hayden. It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a awesome conversation. We had a great conversation last week with Justin, who is a big fan of yours, and we had some cool conversations about all things restoration and how we got into it, and it made perfect sense and was actually a mention by our director of sales here, Bryce, who I know you know. Bryce was like, "Hey, you ought to have Noah on. He was franchise of the year," and I was like, "Let's do it. That'd be awesome." So
That's fun.
we wanted to have you on. But I think kind of the natural starting place is kind of how we did it with Justin as well is let's talk about your career a little bit. How did you get into restoration? I'm sure it wasn't you went to restoration high school. I don't know. You probably didn't grow up in it, right? So
Exactly.
let's chat a little bit about your career background, how you got to where you are today.
You bet. So it's funny. There's actually a generation now of, like the industry is pretty well established to where there are some youngsters that have grown up in it now. But yeah,
Right.
for me, I'm one of 10 kids from a big family.
Awesome.
And actually just blue collar working background. My dad was a timber cutter, logger, and a pastor. And so I grew up working hard. And I'm into carpentry, so I was working in the woods, and then I started building acoustic guitars actually for a side hobby, and then I thought it was going to maybe develop into a business for me. So I had all these different interests. I was really into cycling, mountain biking, and road biking, and then I was logging for income, and I was working on building acoustic guitars like on the evenings and weekends. So it's interesting how some of your hobbies can affect your life in a big way, right? So we had a childhood dream. My brothers and I had a childhood dream of riding our bicycles across the United States. And so
I love it.
in 2011, there's many people to do it, right? In 2011, we rode across from Oregon to North Carolina, and then we hitchhiked up to Washington, D.C. with some people we met, and then we rode all the way back. So it was just under 8,000 miles. It took a whole summer, 4 months, and that's literally how I got into this career, because we visited my friend Jay Peters in St. Louis, Missouri, and he basically said, if you have the hair on your chest to do this on bicycles, you should think about starting a restoration business. Nice guy, very nice guy. He's a childhood friend of my dad's actually, so he's kind of an uncle to me, and he had helped many people start a handful of guys start restoration companies in a similar way. So finished the bike trip and told my logging boss I was done and I'm gonna, turn a big corner here. And so I finished building a couple guitars that needed to be finished, and then I went out and trained in Missouri for a couple months and came back and really got into carpet cleaning quite a bit. So we did a lot of carpet, tile, and furniture cleaning, and then later in 2020, 2021, we turned a page and really started. We basically stopped doing the cleaning services and focused completely on the restoration work. So that was a big turning point for me. And I still build guitars in my head. It's just in the last 10 years, I just haven't had practical time to set aside for that, doing it in real life. But
no, that's awesome. And that's such a cool story. And I want to make sure we hit on a couple of these things because I'm fascinated by them, frankly. And I love, and I feel like this is a common thread for a lot of our restoration owners that we work with and that we help with their marketing is they all have some kind of like blue collar background. And I've heard a lot of blue collar backgrounds, but not logging, which I think is so cool. So I'm fascinated about that industry. And maybe restoration doesn't have restoration might not necessarily have the danger aspect to it, but I feel like you kind of maybe naturally grew up with you're not afraid, maybe. And maybe I'm misinterpreting that. So feel free to correct me, but maybe the fear of starting a business maybe wasn't there because you've already kind of done maybe something that's like logging's kind of can be a dangerous business, right? And so
Oh my goodness, yeah.
yeah, so talk a little bit about, do you feel like that's something that just kind of came naturally, or as you grew up in it with your father and then maybe, went out and kind of did your own logging thing? Like, do you feel like you kind of just you weren't afraid of things? Like you were like, I do this for my day job. Like I don't,
Oh,
starting a business doesn't scare me. I don't
I
know.
think there's absolutely an aspect to that. Yeah, I mean, I literally got to where I wouldn't even tell stories anymore in the evenings when I came home because it scared my mom so bad, And my dad's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, don't even bother telling her because it's just gonna scare her." But like, you definitely live on the edge pushing it, and I've been out on a job site where someone had gotten killed the day before. You just learn to take care of yourself, and absolutely the hardest work in the world, but so much fun. You just like
Yeah.
you carry a 90-pound steel block down a valley and up the other side, and climb. I was doing high climbing and rigging up trees and stuff, and some of that stuff. Yeah, you're not. You're focusing on pushing yourself to the absolute limit, and it makes literally at that point, if I would have thought about the life that I live right now, I would have thought it sounds pretty posh.
Yeah.
But a lot of my challenges now they're mental. It's like how to keep. For me, it's 17 employees busy. Like I've got family guys that are, it's like it's like I'm sweating in my brain. It's a different kind of challenge. But
Yeah.
it's the same in a lot of ways. It's the same fear that you're overcoming. So
Yeah. No,
I've never actually kind of thought about it like that, but I appreciate you bringing that out.
no. Well, and I think there's just that. Yeah, it's fascinating to me because my boss and I, Katie, have talked about this multiple times on the podcast where we talk about people that are kind of like serial entrepreneurs, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not afraid to start a business. That's all they've ever done in their lives. Like they start start a business, grow it, sell it, start a business, grow it, sell it. And they just kind of doing that
Right.
constantly. And for some reason, they just don't have this fear. And I think that's, fear of failure or fear of struggling or whatever. And I think that's a cool
Sure.
aspect there that you're like, you just kind of grew up with this where it's like, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the problem solving is different for sure. Cause you're trying to protect yourself and maybe your coworkers from stuff that could actually physically harm them. But
Mm-hmm.
with the business side, it's a little bit different. It can still harm you, but there's different aspects to it. Like you're trying to make sure your employees can put food on the table, that you can put food on the table, that you can still take care of your customers. And,
Right.
the problem solving is different, but I think there's something about it that's like, I don't know if kinetic problem solving, like you're just always kind of doing it all the time. And I think that, I don't know, it's just a cool aspect to both, maybe your logging industry, which I know nothing about, and then kind of the restoration world. So I think
My
that's
dad was
that's a
also
fascinating thing.
my dad was a hard driver too. Like he really he made us work hard, and he told us we could all go to college, but he wasn't going to pay for it. And it's like
Yeah,
he was a college grad, and he's like,
yeah,
the doors, that door is definitely open. I'm not gonna finance it for you. And so if you're gonna get somewhere, you're gonna have to push hard and work for it. But my um, my two brothers also are business owners, and my sisters are married. A couple of them are married to business owners, and it's just been it's been a cool team feeling in our family. As a kiddo growing up with that. Yeah,
I
it's
love
funny
it, man.
how those childhood things really form a lot of foundation for you. And some of this will come out later as we're talking too. I was looking at some of my questions that you had furnished for me, and so
Yeah,
um,
it's
good
it's
stuff.
it's funny, man. And to your dad's point, like can't pay for college when you got 10 kids, right? You can't pay for
Exactly.
everybody's gets a lot of kids you got to pay for, So no, I love it. And I love those childhood aspects. I think you know, people take it for granted, but like how we grow up and how we are raised, like kind of helps mold us into the people we are. And I've had the opportunity to rub my shoulders with some really amazing people in the restoration industry. And I think a lot of it they consistently say, I owe a lot of this who I am to, my parents or how I was raised, or an older sibling or a family member that took care of them and like
Yep.
taught me the value of this hard work. And restoration is still hard work. But it's also like super rewarding. And that was kind of the one thing that Justin talked about quite a bit last week, was like what attracted him to the restoration world was like, it's like, obviously it's a great way to run a business, and it obviously can help you make money and take care of your family, but like, it's also very rewarding. Did you see, obviously the initial idea came from a friend of yours, but you've been in restoration now for quite a while. What's made you stick with it? Is it something like, do you feel like it's the rewarding aspect? Like, what's made you consistently want to get more into restoration?
I think that the reward is definitely part of it. Giving someone's keys back to them and letting them walk into their building that's been completely refurbished, extremely rewarding. Um, for me, I think the personal challenge aspect of it might be one of the biggest draws for me, because you're going to see something adventurous and challenging every week. And for me, it's just been it's been an amazing stretch for me as a person, um, learning how to grow emotionally and intellectually, to solve problems constantly and innovate solutions that don't exist. Sometimes you're walking into a situation, there's no perfect solution that exists, so you're going to create it.
Yeah.
um, and we have, just the as the entrepreneurial, you know get or done mentality has given way to more of a professional environment for me. That has yielded a whole new set of challenges and growth points for me. So yeah, actually, Justin asked me a couple of years ago. We were walking. He's like, if someone offered you $1 million to walk away from your business, would you sell it? I was like, no way, because it's grown and stretched me and changed who I am as a core person so much that I really value it. I feel like I'm on an anvil getting formed by a good blacksmith, and it's like um, you're gonna get bumped around by the industry and by running a business, but you're gonna grow so much.
Yeah. The, the growth aspect is cool. Like, and to be honest, like, it's not something that I've heard a lot of restoration owners say. So I love that you shared that, because like, it does require, I mean, they talk about how rewarding it is, and that's a common through line for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
the growth aspect is cool, man. Like, it causes you to grow as a person. And that's it. Probably a lot of that comes from owning the business. I think there's probably aspects of that regardless of what business you owned, you would probably get some of that. But
Mm-hmm.
like,
Undoubtedly.
restoration specifically feels like, and it's the people, it's, yeah, like you're saying, like, there's no cookie cutter solution to every situation. And the fact that you get to like be a part of, like, kind of be a hero for a lot of people, like, you can come and
Yeah.
save their home or take care of their home or fix it or repair it. Like, you can do some cool things with that. And I don't know, there's something like, I mean, a home is a pile of sticks and some nails, but like, it's so much more than that, right? Like our homes are like so important to who we are. And I think of,
Oh
like,
yeah, we call
yeah,
it someone's castle. It's their castle. Like
yeah,
you're literally going into their castle, and on their, probably sometimes it's the worst day of their life, and you're an inconvenience at best. Like they wish whatever happened never happened, but you have the responsibility and privilege of helping these clients restore their, number one, restore their sanity and their peace of mind.
yeah. Yeah, and it's, yeah, the castle's a great analogy to it, because it's more than just like their home, right? And like for example, like my wife and I, we bought a fixer upper 5 years ago, and have kind of, slowly been working on it, and have built it into like our home. And it's been fun to be a part of it. And when we first bought it, I dreaded working on it. I cursed myself every day that we bought this old, fixer upper house. But now, like, I couldn't imagine life without it. And if something were to happen, and the statistics say there's something, if we stay in this house for the next 20 years, something probably will happen. There's going to be a water leak or something.
Right.
Like, I would want to make sure it got taken care of by somebody that cared about it. And it's weird, man. Yeah, it really is like our castle. And
It's your castle. It's the spot that you go back to and view the rest of the world from, sort of mentally.
yeah, yeah, I love it. Um, Noah, this is all cool, and I love that you're passionate about it, and I think this kind of leads naturally into the big piece that I wanted to talk with you about today, because I think your passion and where you come from it and your unique backstory has obviously led you guys to be really successful. So much so that you were honored by True North as franchise of the year, True North Restoration as franchise of the year. What led you guys to have that kind of success? Has there been a secret sauce? Is there a magic bullet? I know the answer is probably no to that question, but like, what has been so crucial to your guys' success, especially over the last year or so?
Yes, it has been an honor. It's been a real joy to receive that recognition, and I've thought about this quite a bit. I think that being consistent has been one of my biggest keys. I tend to be pretty steady, and working at the same task and keeping a focus on it until it's crushed, and like really getting to the bottom of things. So I would say being consistent has been huge. It's really easy to actually accept peer pressure that's will push you around to do things that aren't you.
Yeah.
And then you end up chasing butterflies instead of being consistent and setting things up in a way that you understand and you really mentally own. So I would say daily consistency. Another one has been finding and retaining good people. I just feel super blessed to have an amazing team of people where I was able to write out our core values, write out a good handbook, write out our core values. We post our core values publicly and we talk about them. And it's been like finding a team of people that have, I'll pull up our core values here while I talk, but finding a team of people who have wanted to come to work, who love coming to work, and they gang up and help each other. We have a really good, we've had multiple people from outside come to visit us, and they said, when I walk in the door, there was like happiness and joy here, and like people enjoy coming to work, and there's just like this helpful and positive spirit here. And it was it's very fulfilling for me. In fact,
Yeah.
that
No,
kind of thing
and
actually, for me, actually, even as an entrepreneur, I try to be growth minded, but to be honest with you, the vibe of my business, like the people that are here and how we function with each other each day, is actually more important to me than the dollar piece. Because I feel like the dollars take care of themselves if you
yep.
oil the gears in the right way, and if you make a place where people enjoy coming to work.
Yeah, I fully agree, man. It's something that just kind of happens naturally. Like the your revenue will grow, your business will grow if you do these specific things. There's probably I shouldn't say there are definitely some key building blocks that
Correct.
have to be in place for you to have a successful business. But like, as far as like, yeah, achieving growth and your goals, like a lot of it comes back to people and values and hiring to those values. We Spot On Solutions, we talk about it all the time, that like we would rather, and we hire people based on our values more so than their technical skill. We can
Correct.
teach the technical side, right? And I'm sure you're doing the same thing, right? Like we can
Exactly.
teach you
Exactly.
how to do the technical side of things, but it's hard for me to teach you how to be honest and to have integrity and to want to work hard. Like those pieces are a little harder to teach, but I
Yeah. If
can
you hire
teach you.
character,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. I think that, and one more thing has been, I've really tried to be generous with my time, helping other True North locations. So that may have some bearing on my franchisee of the year reward. It's just like trying to help. It kind of goes back to the same thing, like in letting the money take care of itself, and like taking half an hour to talk to someone about, setting up budgeting accounts on their bank, or
Yep.
talking about accounting, bookkeeping questions, or best practices that we're using. There are times when I just have to say, we'll talk later, I'm too busy, we've got jobs coming in. But I've tried to reciprocate the favor. I feel blessed, and I'm trying to reciprocate that favor, and pay it forward.
Love it. Yeah. And I think again, that goes back to your values. That shows that you're living the values, right? It'd be one thing if you were making your employees have to live the values, but you weren't being that kind of person. But it shows that like
Mm-hmm.
you care enough to be like, okay, like I want to live our values. I'm not going to ask my employees to live something that I don't believe in or that I don't buy into. And so, like, that's how you're showing it, is you're like, hey, I'm going to go help other franchise locations accomplish their goals. Because in the
Correct.
end, like, we shouldn't be viewed as, competitors. Like, we're all on the same team here. So let's figure out how we can work together and all grow, which I think is just so, so crucial, especially in the franchise world.
The Success Elevated podcast is brought to you by SOS Navigator. SOS Navigator is an on-demand training platform geared towards marketing, personal development, and business growth. We understand that as a business owner in the service industry, you wear a million hats. Let SOS Navigator be a simple and cost-effective way for you to continue to grow your business. Click the link in the show notes below and use code SOS Podcast to get 10% off your next on-demand training course.
I want to follow up on this because I think it's all kind of tied together. But what are your goals for the future? What do you see the future looking like for True North Restoration of Southwest Oregon? Is it a specific monetary goal? Is it how many employees you want to have? What do you have any kind of goals for the next few years? What are you guys looking to accomplish?
So I'm gonna start with my personal goals because I feel like
Love
the
it.
business needs to support my personal goals. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
And I think if I forget that sometimes, and I actually lose my way, emotionally and mentally. So, personal goals would be finish my house that I'm building and move into it, and expand my available time for spiritual health, physical health, and relationship health. I feel like I work a lot. My it's like kind of one of those things where, like, in your head you're like this incredible family guy and father, and like in reality you're really grinding it pretty hard sometimes. You don't
Yeah.
have that,
Yeah.
like that relational time to invest and stuff. So those would be some practical goals. And I also would like to continue with some real estate investment and stuff. So business goals to support that. I would say number one, continue to systemize our processes. That's been, people look up to me and admire me, but I really feel like we're in the fledgling stages in a lot of ways. Just like
Yeah.
having a turnkey solution is such a important, like if you have your systems in place, then you can scale. So for me, when I see goals, when I think of goals, the fulfillment and joy that I get out of having people who love coming to work, knowing exactly what their spot is at work and doing that and thriving together, that's a major goal for me. And it's a foundational goal for growth. So continue to systemize our process. And then I would say grow our capacity to comfortably handle Eugene, Springfield area north of us, and potentially expand out into Southern Oregon, Grants Pass, Medford area. Yeah, I see growth as a natural effect if you create systems and processes that are scalable. So that's how it's been for us. As the old saying goes, like the more, how does it go? The more I prepare, the luckier I get.
There you go. Yeah. Well, no,
So,
and to your point, Noah, like the systems thing is crucial because then it allows the freedom and the creativity will come easier, right? Like,
correct.
because you were talking earlier, like in the restoration space, there's no cookie cutter solution, but you can develop and find creativity and problem solve better if you have a system in place. So if okay, hey, we're trying to diagnose this water leak or this this water damage, whatever it is, we have a system in place that we know how to take care of it. But now we can build some creativity off it. Okay, for this particular house, we need to do something a little bit different. And that's very easy because we have the equipment or whatever. Like it's easier. I shouldn't say it's easy. It's easier to be creative and to problem solve if you have good systems in place. That's like
100%.
because you don't want to take away your employees' creativity or problem solving. You just want to make it easier for them to do it. And that's what's so cool about, yeah, we're going to develop a system. We're going to give you processes. We're going to give you an SOP, or we're going to make sure we've got good equipment for you to use so that you can then, okay, yeah, you want to go creative problem solve, go do it, but let's do it within these parameters, right?
Right. Now that we've set you up for success, now you can go
exactly.
take care of it. exactly.
People think process makes it so that you don't have to think, right? Like I feel like there's a lot of business owners out there. They're like, yeah, I'm trying to get my processes in place so that, we can automate, or that we can have employees that just go through a checklist. And while that's true to an extent, you want to have some of those things laid out. Like, that's not always going to be the case. Not every solution
Correct.
is going to be developed or produced because you have some system in place. And if you have employees that all they can do is follow a checklist, well, like, you don't really have good employees. You have somebody that's just a task
A
follower, which
drone.
is fine, but is not necessarily how you achieve real growth and have real
Right.
successful jobs by doing that. So yeah,
I was
I
listening to a
think,
book. I
yeah.
was listening to a book a couple of years ago, and the author said, he said, if you start by hiring self-managing employees that don't need managed, then you start to also create systems. Then you can really shoot for the stars, because your self-managing employees will do quite nicely at solving problems and working together in the interim while you create stellar systems. And then you couple those two things together and you can really take off like a rocket.
Oh yeah. And again, it makes it easier for again, we go back to the values thing. If you're hiring more to values, which is what everyone should do, you should hire more to your values. If you have these systems in place, it makes it really easy to train and ramp up an employee, because you're like, hey, I know you're honest, I know you're hardworking, I know you have integrity and that you care about your other teammates, right? Like we've outlined the values and we've hired you based on those values. Now I'm just going to give you a system, and you can follow that system, and it's going to help you be successful. And it just makes it
Correct.
really, really easy to like ramp up employees. Like we Spot on Solutions, we saw a ton of real growth a couple of years ago when we really started leaning into those systems and those training pieces, because it allowed us to really just be like, hey, we're just going to bring on people that check the boxes when it comes to values. And now we have a system in place. We can just give that to them and say, hey, follow this system. It's going to help you grow. And then from there, you can start being creative and problem solve off of it. So I love that. I think that's,
I know,
yeah.
benchmark wise, I did, like, when we crossed the $1 million benchmark, like that was really kind of a surreal dream. That was exciting for us. And then I've come to subsequently realize that, a successful mom and pop corner Jiffy Mart is probably doing $1 million. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and the goalpost moves, right? Like, you have other successful benchmarks. Yeah.
100%. So I'm not going to even put a dollar amount out there, because to me, it's those are natural consequence. Those are natural rewards of just running the thing well. So yeah,
I love it, man. Well, and that's why you guys are the franchise of the year, because you've knocked it out of the park, man. And you guys have some awesome goals. And here at Spot On Solutions, I know we're excited to be some small part of it, because I think it's, I tell people all the time, it's easy for me to do my job when I work with awesome clients and awesome companies, and you guys are an awesome company. And so it makes things really, really easy when it comes to marketing, because you guys are knocking it out of the park. So I love it.
it's been a joy working with you.
Yeah. Well, we
think
appreciate
when you
it,
find
man.
someone that when you find someone that you feel like you resonate with, you don't have to waste time wondering if they're wasting your money, or you know what I mean. Like, you could just move forward. So it's been great.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it. Noah, again, thank you so much. This has been super, super eye-opening. And again, I feel like our audience is going to get a lot of really awesome value out of this. I want to close by asking the same 3 questions we ask all of our guests. We got some great answers last week from Justin, and we get awesome answers every week from all of our podcast guests. So I want to ask you these same questions. First and foremost, book or podcast that you've been reading or listening to recently that you really enjoy, or maybe that you've read or listened to in the past that you really, really like and resonates with you.
Absolutely. So right now I'm reading The Impossible First by Colin O'Brady. He's the first guy that went across Antarctica solo. So that's been fun, just good reading. Also, I'm listening through a book called Switch On Your Brain right now, The Key to Peak Happiness, Thinking, and Health. So I feel like I struggle with brain fog sometimes, where just like I get, there's like 100 meteorites coming at me, and it's just a lot to handle. And so it's been an excellent book. I've been listening, enjoying that very much. Also, the Rich Dad Poor Dad products have been incredible for me. So
those ones are awesome.
I listened through the original book twice so far, and I eat that stuff for lunch. I love that stuff. So
That's awesome. I love the first recommendation. I'm a big nonfiction guy. I don't read as much, I try to read them as often as I can, like the business and the self help books. But I love a good like biography, man. And so I end up reading a lot of those, or like nonfiction. Like I read um last year I read Undaunted Courage, which is about the Lewis and Clark expedition. It's just an awesome book, and all the stuff they had to deal with. Like I love a good nonfiction and a story and a biography type, and I think that is sometimes lost in like the business owner management type world, where it's like, hey man, like you should check out some other cool people that aren't necessarily like, don't get me wrong, like a business self-help book is great and we have lots of awesome recommendations, but sometimes it's cool to hear like firsthand, like from some cool stories from some cool people. So I love that.
if you can get off the grid and actually allow yourself to grow and explore those other areas of like your world, I think it can actually give you fresh insight into your professional sector that you're not going to get by reading the whole lineup of books that everyone else is reading. So it's important.
It's awesome, man. Second question. And feel free to kind of go whatever direction you want with this, because we've had some awesome answers that aren't necessarily exactly what this question is asking, which is cool. How do you relax at the end of a long day? Is there something you do to recharge your batteries mentally, emotionally, whatever it is? What do you do to relax?
So I was very challenged when you sent me that question because I'm not very good at relaxing. I am learning. It's the art of relaxing I'm trying to learn.
Yes.
I remember like so many times my dad was, I don't want to call him a workaholic, but like we're all just like very, I think, task focused people. So we would literally get together at Thanksgiving and we get all antsy and we're like looking for projects to do. Like we can't even relax. So like, I mean, it's an art that feel like I'm learning. I think one good relaxing thing for me has just been like a good evening rhythm. Like I have 5 kids, just going home, having dinner with the family and just like reading bedtime stories to the kiddos. Like some of that is just like so good for me, you know? And like going back to the castle concept, like that's sort of that's your castle tower that you kind of take in the rest of the world from, you know what I mean? So I think preserving that has been really important for me mentally. And then in the summer months, we'll work in the garden in the evenings and go on walks and stuff. And so a lot of it's related to my family right now. I get home and they all come bombing out and grabbing me and hugging me. It's great. I like to get a cup of tea at night. My wife will get a drink or a cup of tea and sit back, and sometimes we're hanging out and talking together. Other times I'll just be I'll play my guitar or check the news. We're working on a house next door, so I'll walk over to the house and just like think about life and check out how the house is coming along. And that was like probably my most challenging question, to be honest with you, because it's like it's speaking to a mental state that literally we can think that we get into, but we can rarely get into if we're not careful. And I think it's really healthy to get into that more often than not. So working on that one.
No, you did great. I mean, for saying you struggled with that question, you did awesome. Those are great answers. And honestly, that's honestly, I think a crucial piece to it, that like you've got to have, I love the having a rhythm to your day or a structure, so that okay, like no matter what, I'm home at this time. Most of the time, obviously restoration, sometimes that changes a little bit, but most of the time I'm home at this time. I'm with my kids. I'm having dinner. Like having that consistency is so important, especially as a business owner, because you just have so many things rattling around in your head all day that you kind of just need some time to be like, okay, I'm going to try, separating work and your home life is kind of impossible as a business owner, but to even just for a moment to be like, I'm just going to sit down and have dinner with my wife and my kids, like that's huge. Or I'm going to go read them a bedtime story. Like even 15 minutes of that
exactly
can be all the difference in having.
I get more out of it than they do sometimes. I think it's like it's
it's awesome, man. Well, last question, and I'll quit bugging you for the day. But again, just really appreciate all of your answers and everything that you've provided today. I think you had some great insight. Last question. If you could rewind to the beginning of your career and take this kind of whatever direction you want, but if you could rewind to the beginning of either restoration or beginning of your logging career, whatever, however far back you want to go, you could tell younger Noah, sorry, one thing, what would that one thing be?
Once again, that was a challenging one. I have a couple different things, and
Okay.
they're not like maybe quite as concise as I wish, but I would say living 90 seconds away from my shop has been one of the best decisions I've made. And so I would definitely tell younger Noah to make sure to keep that as a priority.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. I wouldn't do it any other way. And then I would skip all the carpet cleaning and stuff. I would have gone straight to restoration. So it's a really joy for me vicariously, honestly, to see some of these new True North locations just go straight for the jugular, it's like going for it. So
Yeah.
I think skipping that stuff. And then I've been sort of a more intellectual, somewhat of a hermit as a kid. And I would just like work on my guitars and like, I would say be bold and accept new challenges because you get a lot of joy out of realizing that you're changing as a person, So I think I could have done better at that. And then lastly, I would say setting a firm habit of early evenings and early mornings. One of my friends gets up, he goes to bed at 8 and gets up at like 3:30 or 4. And he's like,
Wow.
he's eating lunch before the rest of the world's problems even hit him. You know what I mean? It's just like,
That's awesome.
I aspire to that. I'm not there, but just like, I think if we can set those healthy rhythms, it can be really foundation blocks for future success.
Love it. Great answers, man.
I've really enjoyed this. I feel like it's been it's refining for me to be able to speak to these things. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course, Noah. Listen, like this has been so cool, and that answer there is something that I hadn't thought of. Like that, I think people will gloss over that you said living 90 seconds from work, like something like that, or 90 seconds from your shop. Like we get so caught up, especially like corporate America, in the commute, man, and that's something that I super resonate with. Before I came here to work at Spot On Solutions, I was going to end up working for the government, which I would have had to drive about an hour every direction to work. And it would have been a great job and that'd have been fine. But the commute itself, like it's such a blessing that I get to live so close to where I work. Like I'm 2-3 minutes from the office and
that's awesome.
I can go home for lunch and have lunch with my wife at our house.
Exactly.
And pet my dog. And then I can, and I'm there and back in 30 minutes and it's awesome. And like, there's something that is, I think, missed in the corporate world and the hustle and grind of it all today, that like, an hour and a half commute is fine. Like no big deal. It's like, no, that sucks. Like it's an extra 3 hours a day that you're not at home with your kids or working on your business, right? If you're trying to grow your business. And
all I can say is that if you're doing that, you better be majorly stacking your time and like listening to some high quality content and like planning what you're going to do next, because that's a lot of life. That's
a lot of time. Yeah. So I want to make sure I highlighted that because I think that's a cool answer that not a lot of people talk about. So anyways, Noah, again, seriously, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. Really, really appreciate it. True North Restoration Franchise of the Year owner, Noah Witt. That we're gonna have to start introducing you as that every time we get on a call or something. No, just kidding. But again, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome, and we hope to have you on again in the future.
It's been a joy. Look forward to it, man. Thanks, Hayden.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on YouTube or any other major podcast platform to listen to more episodes. We are proudly brought to you by Spot On Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your business, please check us out at spotonsolutions.com.